Hi there. So this is session 2 of the trauma mental health video sessions. In this session, I'm going to be going over a few coping skills for trauma. Now, before we do that, I wanted to add a few things to what I mentioned in the first session. One, I was coming up with a few examples of trauma, and I remembered that in Jamaica, there's quite a lot of gang violence and, of course, a lot of domestic violence. So if you have witnessed any such violence, or maybe you were terrorized or threatened, you witnessed your family members being abused or raped or murdered, that also qualifies as an experience of trauma. I also wanted to add the biological features of trauma. And of course, a lot of these are anxiety based. So let's go back to the panic attacks that I mentioned before. A panic attack usually involves shortness of breath, heart palpitations, or a racing pulse. It's essentially called the fight or flight response, where your body is preparing itself for danger, to protect itself, to protect your loved ones. It's a survival instinct, a natural human instinct. So in the panic attack, we're seeing where the adrenaline is spiked, your body is getting ready to go above and beyond. Sometimes we find more strength, more courage, more energy whenever we're under pressure. And that's really what the fight or flight response helps us to do. Essentially, it is completely fine in the face of fear or immediate danger. However, when you're a very anxious person or you're experiencing significant anxiety as a result of trauma, we might constantly be experiencing those symptoms, or you might constantly be experiencing those symptoms. And as such, your body is always at that high state of arousal, just kind of ready to go. Your nervous system is at risk of being fried. So going back to the panic attack, the shortness of breath, dizziness, feeling faint, feeling that you can't breathe, that you're probably having a heart attack. Sometimes there's even embarrassment when that happens, because you don't want anyone to see what you're going through. You don't want all the questions and all the attention. And sometimes we might even go a step further and not want to leave our homes or go into public places or go out in public because we fear that panic attack happening again. So those are a few things I did want to mention before moving into the coping skills. Now, in terms of coping skills, we have a few that are more suitable for children versus adults. So let's go over the child-based coping skills first. So for children, you always want to focus on thoughts, emotions, and just kind of how to challenge those thoughts, how to cope with those emotions. So some of the thoughts, as I'd mentioned in the previous session, included the feeling that it was your fault, or there's something you could have done to prevent it from happening to yourself or to another person. And so there's that constant negativity towards the self, shame, guilt, self-doubt, low self-esteem. So we first want to challenge those thoughts. Let them know that they're in a safe place, of course, and let them know that it wasn't their fault and you did what you could do, or the way you reacted, or the way you're feeling is normal. We call that validating emotions. A lot of people live in invalidating surroundings or families or households, and so we're led to believe that what we think and feel isn't important, or we shouldn't think or feel those things. So the first thing we want to let children know, and of course this applies to adults as well, is that it is normal and it's okay to feel these emotions. Or to have these thoughts. Moving on to the emotions such as anxiety, sadness, anger, depression, and fear. In order for children to even learn these emotions, we usually start off with emotion charts. And these are documents that are easily accessible online, and they involve a series of faces showing different emotions. A lot of them tend to be cartoons, but you can also use pictures of real people. You can even work with parents and children and have them express different emotions and describe the emotions so that both can learn how to communicate with the other, if we want to even go a step further. But those emotion charts go a long way in identifying what the emotions are, and we can teach them situations where these emotions are valid, where they actually are justifiable. The emotion fits the facts. And once they're able to identify these emotions, they're one step further. The next important piece is knowing when the emotions are too intense, and when they are, that's when the coping skills come into play, such as drawing your happy place or imagining your happy place. That's a wonderful activity for children. Or they can engage in play, just playing with their favorite toys, dolls, action figures. They can create a world that is wonderful for them. Sometimes, however, they might recreate the event, the traumatic event, and you can also get a window into the life that the child is living, what's happening in the household, what they're being exposed to. So there's so much that we can get through play and through artwork and even music, writing songs, singing songs, and encouraging these art forms, because they are the best way to express ourselves. And remember that children are verbally and cognitively underdeveloped or undeveloped, so they may not be able to express to us how they're feeling or how the trauma might have impacted them, but at least they can express it through art forms. And of course, when we're working with adults, it has to do with being aware of the intensity of the emotions, knowing when those emotions are taking control of our lives. We call it living in emotion mind. And using coping skills like self-soothing, relaxing skills, deep breathing skills, finding positive things to do, hobbies and interests, taking a self-care day, taking a break, hanging out with friends, watching the stars, going to the beach, lighting a scented candle, cuddling up in a nice blanket, or wearing your favorite clothing, dressing up. There's so many different things that we can do to lift our spirits, to make us feel better about ourselves, even if it's for a short time in the moment, just to overcome these intense emotions when you're experiencing the anxiety, the depression, the flashbacks, or difficulty sleeping. Meditation and prayer and faith and spirituality also go a long way in bringing that peace that we are okay now and things can be better, and we can work on living the lives that we really want to make ourselves happy. So before I leave you today, I'm going to go through a little deep breathing skill, and I'm going to turn just a little bit to the side here so you can see the process. So I'm going to place one hand on my chest and one hand on my belly, and I'm going to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And when I breathe in, I'm not going to do chest breathing, I'm going to do deep belly breathing. Technically, I'm breathing into my diaphragm. However, my belly will expand and contract with the breath. Here we go. Don't know if you were paying attention, but my hand should have moved as my belly expanded like a balloon when I was breathing in, and it should have gone back in when my stomach was contracting while I was breathing out. What you're not to do is, because that's chest breathing and it's like a panic attack, which of course is only going to make the situation worse. So that's why we place the hand on the chest, to make sure that we're not chest breathing. Instead, we are deep belly breathing. So I hope these tips were helpful. And one more thing, you can also add meditation to deep breathing. So you can think about a happy place or a pleasant place that you can go to escape when you're upset. And you can also think of happy or positive thoughts or what you hope for your future. And ultimately that helps to regulate the nervous system, to reduce that flight or fight response, and bringing your body back to balance. And it will be very helpful for you to practice those skills at the end of the day, just before bedtime, especially if you're struggling with sleep. So So while there are quite a lot of skills that we can talk about, this session was really just to be a brief one to give you some tips if you are going through any of these situations or experiencing these symptoms, or you have a loved one or are concerned, or a person about which you're concerned that might be experiencing these symptoms. I hope they were helpful, and until the next time, take care of yourself.